Students, I am Hema Rajesh, tutor for biology. I will be covering transport and plants today. Briefly, I will run through how to access revision notes and test in classix.com. Open the classix.com page, click on practice. You can select, there are a lot of packages here. Select the package you want. Since it's a NEET class, I'm going to select NEET Premium. And here you will find the subject-wise tests being given here. So you will find lot of chapter wise tests. Let me click and show you in biology. Now every chapter has got at least 2 to 3 tests. Here the tests are done based upon the importance of it in the NEET exams and also the complexity of the text. These tests will basically help you to understand and identify the key points in your textbook without any issue, so that very easily you can get your textbook at your hand. Now here that you find different kinds of bubbles. Each bubble is a test. Now the R bubble is to assign random tests on the same chapter if you need additional practice. Now you can take any these tests any number of times. For example, if you have seen a green bubble here, it means you have completed the test, but you can always take this test again if you feel you had to revisit and practice again. Sometimes you would have got very less marks, or you would have lost 2 or 3 marks, so you want to see how well you are going to fare again. And sometimes, as a matter of fact, even if we have scored well, for revision practice we can always visit the test. Blue bubble shows that the test is yet to be taken. This R bubble is nothing but a randomized test. Once you complete this, the degree of complexity will be mixed here, so that you know whether you are able to get the concept right, its application right. And this yellow bubble shows that it is an incomplete test. So you have not completed the test and it is indicating you need to complete the test. Sometimes what happens, we would have started a test. After 3 or 4 questions, I might have felt that I am not prepared for the test. At that point of time, I will close the test. So after learning the concepts, I can come back, revisit the test and take down the other questions and complete the test. So there are a lot of questions that is going to help you. Now let us go for revision now. Before going to the revision part of the lesson, now you all must be in a state to know how NEET is going to be. The suspense is building because the dates are also postponed. Now, see, if we are looking at the analysis of the NEET paper, what we find that is there are three broad types of questions. One is totally NCERT based. One type of questions are direct from previous year's question paper, and a few are modified questions. So let us look at NCERT based questions. Approximately 68 to 70 questions in the examination are directly from the NCERT books. They can be attempted easily by those who read NCERT syllabus religiously and meticulously. Direct from the previous year's question paper, another 8 to 10 questions in the examination can be solved. If you have solved NEET question papers of previous years, these questions are repeated with little or no modification. Now, the last aspect is the modified questions. At least 8 to 10 questions in the NEET will be newer questions. These questions become the game changer for those for those people who are just mugged up the text and trying to answer. It would not be possible. It is, though they are from NCERT book, to get them right you need to apply the knowledge that you have about the subject. So in this website we have made an earnest attempt to cater to all the three kinds of questions, and it would really help you to prepare adequately for NEET. Now I hope you have got the framework. Now let us begin the lesson. Now when I click on this revision notes, it will pop up into a PDF, and this is the PDF which has been prepared again, looking into the needs of the student, taking NEET into consideration. The important key concepts are all being put, and it only runs to around 135 pages. That is physics, chemistry, biology of both grade 11 and 12. So I would always suggest that it would be an asset for you for as your study material for your NEET preparation. Now transport and plants. So you know that there has to be movement of water, gases, and nutrients in the plants. In a flowering plant, the substances that need to be transported are water, mineral nutrients, organic nutrients, and plant growth regulators. Over small distances, substance can easily move by diffusion and by cytoplasmic streaming supplemented by active transport. Transport over long distances proceeds through the vascular system. That is, xylem and phloem will help or aid in this transportation, and this is known as translocation. So, translocation can be defined as transport of substances in plants over long distances through the vascular system, xylem and phloem. Transport of water and mineral in xylem is unidirectional, while transport of organic and mineral nutrients in phloem is multidirectional. Now let us look into diffusion. So if you had to look at diffusion, means of transport. So what are the different ways transport occurs in the plants? So you know very well they are diffusion, facilitated diffusion, and active transport. Now let us look at diffusion. It is the movement of particles or molecules or ions from a region of higher concentration to the region of lower concentration. Diffusion is a passive process which requires no expenditure of energy. During diffusion, each molecule diffuses down its own concentration gradient and remains unaffected by the concentration gradient of other molecules. Suppose there are 3 or 4 molecules. These molecules will never compete with each other. They will be diffusing down its concentration gradient, and they are not affected by the concentration gradient of the other substances. Now let us look at, sorry, significance of diffusion. So what is the significance of diffusion? It helps in gaseous exchange such as oxygen and carbon dioxide during photosynthesis and respiration, translocation of water, solutes, food, and passive absorption of minerals take place through simple diffusion process. Diffusion is responsible for the loss of water through plant surface during the final step of stomatal transpiration, when water molecules slowly diffuse out from the intercellular spaces into the outer atmosphere through open stomata. Now, diffusion pressure is one thing you have to understand. It is the force or pressure developed by the movement of the diffusible particles of a substance as they move from higher concentration to a lower concentration, and diffusion pressure of pure water is maximum. Now, the next type is of transport is facilitated diffusion. The diffusion rate depends upon the size of the substances. Diffusion of any substance across a membrane also depends on its solubility in the lipids, the major constituents of the membrane. Substances that find difficult to pass through the membrane, their movement has to be facilitated. Now, membrane proteins provide sites at which such molecules can cross the membrane. A concentration gradient must be there for the molecules to diffuse, even if facilitated by the proteins, and this is what we call it as facilitated diffusion. Now, this is the diagram. They might ask you to identify the process that is happening here. So it is a facilitated diffusion. Facilitated diffusion is very specific. It allows cell to select substances for uptake. It is sensitive to inhibitors which react with protein side chains. The porins are the proteins that form huge pores in the outer membrane of the plastids, mitochondria, and some bacteria, allowing molecules up to the size of small proteins to pass through. The transport proteins releases the molecule inside the cell. Example you can take as the water channels, which is made up of 8 different types of aquaporins. So this is about the systems of the different systems that you come across. Okay, so what are the methods of facilitated transport? One is the symport, other is the antiport, and one is the uniport. Now let us look into these things now. So in symport, both the molecules cross the membrane in the same direction. If there are 2 molecules A and B, they will be crossing the membrane in the same direction. In an antiport, the molecules will move in opposite direction. When a molecule moves across a membrane independent of the other molecules, then it is called as uniport. So here, this diagram might be given to you and they might ask you to identify A, B, C. So it need not be in the same order, but please understand if it is in the same direction, it is to be identified as symport. If it is in the opposite direction, it is antiport. And if there is only one molecule, because it does not depend upon the presence of the other molecule for transport, then it is uniport. Now let us look into active transport. This is the third type. It uses energy to pump molecules against a concentration gradient. It is carried out by the membrane proteins. Pumps are proteins that use energy to carry substances across the cells. Now let us have a comparative study about the three types of transport system. So simple diffusion, facilitated transport and active transport. I know it is there in your textbook. Sometimes we tend to lose this, we tend to overlook these kind of tables and figures in the book. That is why we are highlighting here. So it requires special membrane proteins. Simple diffusion does not require. Facilitated transport and active transport require. Highly selective diffusion is not highly selective, but facilitated transport and active transport are highly selective. Transport saturates. In the simple diffusion, it does not, but in facilitated transport, in active transport, yes. Now, uphill transport, no, it is not against the concentration gradient, it is down the gradient. So, simple diffusion and facilitated transport is no, but in active transport, it is against the gradient. So, it is an uphill transport. Simple diffusion requires no ATP and facilitated transport also does not require ATP, but active transport requires ATP as it has to move substances against the concentration gradient. Now let us look into plant-water relationships. Now water is essential for all physiological activities of the plant and it plays a very important role in all organisms. Please. Woody parts, have relatively very little water, while soft parts mostly contain water. Terrestrial plants take up huge amount of water daily, but most of it is lost through air through evaporation from the leaves by the process of transpiration. Now let us look at water potential. The concept of water potential was proposed by Slater and Taylor in the year 1960. I repeat the name, Slater and Taylor in 1960. Water potential in a plant tissue is always less than 0 bar and hence a negative number. It is represented by the Greek letter psi. Water potential psi of pure water is 0 and addition of solute in it decreases its psi. That means it becomes negative. The water moves from a higher water potential, that is lower dpd, to lower water potential, that is higher dpd. As water potential is measured as a negative value, water moves from less negative water potential to more negative water potential. Water potential is the sum of the osmotic potential and the pressure potential. Water potential, if you had to calculate, it will be equal to osmotic potential plus, or it is also called solute potential plus pressure potential. Now let us look into some of the numerical relationship. So psi, that is equal to, that is water potential, that is psi, that is equal to osmotic potential plus pressure potential. Okay. Now the pressure that develops in a cell due to osmotic diffusion is called Turga pressure. As cell wall is rigid, it will also exert equal and opposite pressure to that of the Turgor pressure, which is termed as wall pressure. So Turgor pressure is equal to wall pressure. Diffusion pressure deficit DPD or suction pressure SP is the measure of index or sucking power. It is the difference between diffusion pressure of pure water and diffusion pressure of the solution. So dPd will be equal to Sp. Finally, if you look at the relationship, dPd or Sp is equal to OP minus Tp or Wp, because Tp is equal to Wp. So these relationships are very important. Please make a note. they might ask you to identify the relationships, or a problem can be given, a simple problem, where you may have to use these simple things and work out and calculate it. Now let us look into osmosis. Osmosis is the diffusion of water molecules through a differentially permeable membrane or semi-permeable membrane. Membranes, can be impermeable. That is, they do not allow any solvent or solute to pass through them. Example, cutinized cell wall, lignified cell wall, etc. Permeable, that is, they can allow all solutes and solvents to pass through them. Example, cellulosic cell wall. Semi-permeable, that is, allows solvent but prevents solute to pass through them. Example, parchment paper, copper ferrocyanide membrane. And differentially permeable, allows only certain substances to pass through them and prevent the others. Example, all your biological membranes like plasma membrane, tonoplast, and all membranes surrounding the different cell organelles. See here, you might think it is semi-permeable. No, only for osmosis it has to be a semi-permeable membrane, because it should allow only the solvent but prevent the solute to pass through them. But in your biological systems, what happens? They are differentially permeable. If they give a choice as semi-permeable and differentially permeable, then you have to select it as differentially permeable depending upon the question they have asked. If they have asked in specific to osmosis, the membrane has to be semi-permeable. Now let us look into osmotic pressure. Now it is the actual process which develops in a solution when it is separated from pure water by semi-permeable membrane, or it is the pressure needed to prevent the passage of water into the solution through semi-permeable membrane. Osmotic pressure of solution is always higher than its pure solvent. Now, if you look at the highest osmotic pressure that has been recorded is from a xerophytic plant, Artiplex conferentialia. Osmotic pressure developed by 1 molar NaCl solution will be greater than that of 1 molar sucrose solution, because sucrose, being a non-electrolyte, will develop an osmotic pressure equal to 24.05 atmospheres, whereas molar NaCl will develop 48.1 atmosphere. Osmosis is very important for the plants. That you know. Now let us. Okay. So osmosis, what is the significance of osmosis? You know that osmosis is very important for plants because it is responsible for absorption of water by roots, turgidity of plant organs, cell-to-cell movement of water, opening and closing of stomata, and resistance of plants to drought, frost, etc. Now let us look into different kinds of solutions. Now let us look into different kinds of solutions. Isotonic, when the concentration of outer solution, that is in which the cell is placed, is equal to the concentration of the cell sap, then you call such a solution to be isotonic solution. If a cell is placed in a isotonic solution, the amount of water leaving the cell equals that entering the cell, and therefore there is no net movement of water in the cell. When concentration of outer solution is higher than the concentration of the cell sap, the solution is called hypertonic solution. When concentration of outer solution is lower than the concentration of the cell sap, the solution is called hypotonic solution. Now, if a cell is placed in pure water or hypotonic solution, endosmosis will take place and net movement of water occurs in the cell. Now let us look into some of the terms associated with this: exosmosis and endosmosis. Exo, I said, is outside. So when the cell is placed in a hypertonic solution, water starts moving out of the cell, movement of water towards outside, causing the cell to shrink in the cell wall volume, and it becomes flaccid. Now if you take a cell and place it in a hypertonic solution, exosmosis takes place. If a freshwater plant or amoeba, for example, is transferred to marine water, it dies due to exosmosis because it loses all its water from the cell, as a result of which it dies. Endosmosis, when the cell is placed in the hypotonic solution, water starts moving into the cell, causing the cell to swell up, increasing the cell volume. If a marine plant or a protozoan is transferred to fresh water, it will die because more water will enter into its body, and due to swelling up of the cell to such an extent that the cell bursts and the organism dies. Now, what is the significance of osmosis? You know that absorption of water by the root hairs from the soil solution is an osmotic phenomenon. The cell to cell movements of water within the plant body is mainly due to osmosis. It also maintains definite shape and turgidity of living cells in young tissues of plants, as it largely depends upon the turgor pressure. And turgor pressure is maintained due to osmosis. Now, movement of the guard cells in opening and closing of the stomata it's all due to endosmosis and exosmosis. Autonomic movement on the lateral leaflets of telegraph plant, as well as induced seismonastic movements of the leaflets of Mimosa pudica, that is your touch me not, are also controlled by osmosis. Explosive bursting of many fruits and sporangiae, that is in fungi, it is also due to osmosis. So this is about the significance of osmosis. Now let us also look at other terms which will be commonly encountering. One is plasmolysis, other is deplasmolysis. When osmosis occurs, a protoplast shrinks or contracts. So you know when osmosis, it is an exosmosis and separates from the cell wall. It is known as plasmolysis. When a plasmolysed cell is placed in a hypertonic solution, the protoplasts start to swell up due to endosmosis, restoring the turgid condition, and this is known as deplasmolysis. So these kinds of definitions they might ask you, and then they might ask you to identify the correct definition, or they will frame such a question. You should know the meaning of these sentences. Now let us look into imbibition. Now imbibition is the cause of swelling of wooden doors and windows in the rainy season and swelling of seeds after dipping in water. The first step in imbibition is adsorption, that is, attachment of liquid on the surface. Imbibition is important for water absorption and germination of seeds. Maximum absorption of water takes place by root hair zone. Root hair increases the absorptive surface of the roots. In conifers, root hairs are either totally absent are poorly developed, and these occur in association with fungal hyphae with the roots, that is mycorrhiza. So the fungus will uh, take the water and supply it to the vessels. Now let us look into long distance transport of water in the plants. Now, long distance transport of substances within a plant cannot be diffusion alone. In such situations, water, minerals, and food are generally moved by a mass or bulk flow system. Mass flow is the movement of substances in bulk or en mass from one plant to another as a result of pressure differences between the 2 points. Bulk flow can be achieved either through a positive hydrostatic pressure gradient or negative hydrostatic pressure gradient. The bulk movement of substances through the conducting or vascular tissues of plants is called translocation. So that is the definition of translocation. The xylem translocates mainly water, mineral salts, some organic nitrogen and hormones from roots to the aerial parts of the plant. Phloem translocates a variety of organic and inorganic solutes, mainly from the leaves to other parts of the plant. Now, absorption of water. So, root pressure is the hydrostatic pressure existing in the roots, which pushes the water up in the xylem vessels. Now, let us look into guttation is the water loss from the aerial parts of the body in the form of liquid water is known as guttation. Now let us look into apoplast and symplast. That is, water is absorbed along with water solutes by the root hairs purely by the diffusion process. Once water is absorbed by the root hairs, it can move deeper into root layers by these ways. One is the apoplastic pathway, other is the symplast pathway. So what you see here in the within the cell, this is the apoplastic pathway, and towards the periphery, what you see is the symplast pathway, and these are the Casparian strips which are impervious to water. And these are the plasmodesmata. These are the connections that connects one protoplasm to another. The apoplast pathway, it is a system of adjacent cell walls that is continuous throughout the plant except at Casparian strips of the endodermis of the roots. Apoplastic movement of water occurs exclusively through the intercellular spaces and the walls of the cells. The movement is dependent on the gradient. So in the periphery, you will be finding the apoplastic pathway here, and symplast is through the plasmodesmata. This you have to remember. This diagram they can ask you and ask you to identify which is apoplastic movement and which is symplastic movement. So one thing you remember, it is across the walls, then it is apoplast. When it is going through the plasmodesmata, it is the symplast. Now, the symplast system is the system of interconnected protoplasts. Neighboring cells are connected through cytoplasmic strands that extends through the cells. Symplastic movement may be aided by cytoplasmic streaming. Now, let us look at movement of water in the roots. Water flows in the roots. So this is the pathway of water. In the roots, usually via the apoplast, since the cortical cells are loosely packed. However, the inner boundary of the cortex, the endodermis, is impervious to water because of a band of suberized matrix called the Casparian strip. The water then moves through the symplast and again crosses a membrane to reach the cells of the xylem. Movement of water through the root layers is ultimately symplastic in the endodermis. In young roots, water enters directly into xylem vessels and or tracheids. In case of mycorrhiza, the fungal filaments form a network around the young root or they penetrate the root cells. Fungus provides the minerals and water to the roots. In turn, roots provide sugar and nitrogen containing compounds to the mycorrhiza. So the next part is ascent of sap. The upward movement of water from the roots to the aerial parts of the plant is known as ascent of sap. Now various experiments demonstrate Various experiments demonstrate that actual pathway of ascent of sap is xylem tissue in terrestrial plants. Xylem contains vessels, tracheids, and xylem parenchyma. Xylem vessels are made up of thick-walled cells joined end to end. The partition wall between the cells dissolve, cell contents disappear and form a hollow tubular structure that resemble the water pipes. A number of theories have been put forth to explain the mechanism of ascent of sap. One is vital force theory. Sir Jagdish Chandra Bose was the strong supporter of this theory. According to Sir J.C. Bose, upward translocation of water takes place due to pulsatory activity of living cells of innermost cortical layer just outside the endodermis. It is also called pulsation theory. This theory was only hypothetical and it was further discarded by the experiments of Strasburger because Strasburger demonstrated that ascent of sap continues even in the stems in which living cells have been killed by the uptake of poison. Second is root pressure theory. This theory was put forth by Priestley. Root pressure is maximum during rainy season in the tropical countries and during spring in the temperate habitats. It is retarded or becomes absent under conditions of starvation, low temperature, drought, and reduced availability of oxygen. Although root pressure developed in the xylem of the roots can raise water to a certain height, it does not seem to be an effective force in ascent of sap due to certain reasons like low magnitude. It is only to an extent of about 2 atmospheres it develops. It becomes even because even in the absence of root pressure, ascent of sap continues, and in gymnosperms, root pressure has been rarely observed. Now let us look into physical force theories. Capillary force theory. This theory was proposed by Boehm. According to this theory, capillary force of vessels and tracheids is responsible for ascent of sap. Next is transpiration pull or cohesion tension theory. Now, this theory was proposed by Dickson and Joly. Water molecules being held by hydrogen bonds between them, therefore form a solid or compact water column, and a large tension is required to break a column of water. Cell walls of xylem vessels have a affinity for water molecules, and that is called adhesion. Loss of water from aerial parts through transpiration causes a section pressure in the water column of the plant, which is called the transpiration pull. Transpiration pull exerted on water column helps in continuous flow of water upward. Transpiration pull is generated by the loss of water through the stomata in the leaves. Less than 1% of the water reaching the leaf is used in photosynthesis and plant growth. Now, water that is lost from the aerial parts is known as the transpiration. So, these definitions have been given here. Now, let us look into transpiration. As I said, transpiration is loss of water through stomata of leaves and other aerial parts of the plant in the form of water vapors. What are the how does transpiration occur? There are three types of transpiration. Stomatal transpiration accounts for 80 to 90%, and it occurs through stomata. Cuticular transpiration, that is through the cuticle. You know, cuticle is the layer that is found above the epidermis, and it accounts for 3 to 9%. And lenticular transpiration, 0.1 to 1%. So lenticels, we have heard of lenticels, that are the holes that are formed in the bark. Through them also transpiration occurs, and that is called lenticular transpiration. Now, let us look into transpiration mainly occurs through stomata. So, what are stomata? They are the pores present on the leaf epidermis. Now, let us look into the structure and also the how opening and closing of the stomata. So this is the structure of the stomata. Here I have shown when the stoma is open, this is the stomata, and this is the pore that is closed. Now these kidney shaped cells are the guard cells, and these are the accessory cells or the subsidiary cells. Now let us look into the details here. Transpiration mainly occurs through stomata. Each stomata is bordered by two specialized epidermal cells called guard cells, which are generally kidney shaped or bean shaped or reniform. In grasses, guard cells are dumbbell shaped. Guard cells are surrounded by other specialized epidermal cells called subsidiary cells or accessory cells. Stomatal pore is measured with the help of potometer. Rate of transpiration by potometer. Example, Gannon's potometer, Farmer's potometer, and comparative rate of transpiration of two leaf surfaces by cobalt chloride paper method. So this you will be doing it in practicals, but that can be asked in the NEET exams. Opening and closing of stomata are governed by changes in the atmospheric pressure or turgidity of the guard cells. When guard cells are turgid, stomata opens, and when flaccid, stomata close. Transpiration is affected by several external factors, that is temperature, light, humidity, wind speed, etc. Plant factors that influence transpiration are number and distribution of stomata, number of stomata open, water status of the plant, canopy structure, etc. Transpiration driven ascent of xylem of sap or ascent of sap depends on cohesion, that is mutual attraction between the molecules, addition, attraction of water molecules to polar surfaces, surface tension. Water molecules are attracted to each other in the liquid phase more than to water in the gas phase. These three properties give water high tensile strength. Now, the process of photosynthesis needs water. When water evaporates through the stomata, the thin film of water over the cells is continuous. It results in pulling of water molecule to molecule into the leaf from the xylem. Another factor is because of lower concentration of water vapor in the atmosphere as compared to the substomatal cavity and intercellular spaces. Water diffuses into the surrounding air, and this creates a pull. An actively photosynthesizing plant has continuous need of water. Now, the evolution of C4 photosynthetic system is maybe one of the strategies for maximizing the availability of carbon dioxide while minimizing the water loss. So, this is about opening and closing of the stomata. Now, let us look into the last part, that is your uptake and transport of mineral nutrients. Most minerals must enter the root by active absorption into the cytoplasm of epidermal cells. This needs energy in the form of ATP. Some ions also move into the epidermal cells passively. Specific proteins in the membranes of root hair cells actively pump ions from the soil into the cytoplasm of epidermal cells. Transport protein of endodermal cells are control points where plant adjusts the quantity and types of solutes that reach the xylem. Root endodermis, because of the layer of suberin, has the ability to actively transport ions in one direction only. Now, translocation of mineral ions. The chief sinks for the mineral elements are the growing regions of the plants, such as the apical and the lateral meristems, young leaves, developing flowers, fruits, and seeds, and the storage organs. Unloading of mineral ions occur at the fine vein endings through diffusion and active uptake by these cells. Mineral ions are frequently remobilized, particularly from older senescing parts. Some structural elements like calcium also are not remobilized. Xylem transports only inorganic nutrients, while phloem transports only organic materials. Now let us look into phloem transport of food. Sucrose is the main food transported by the vascular tissue that is phloem from the source, that is the leaf, to sink where the food is needed. The source sink relationship is variable due to season and needs. The direction of movement in the phloem can be upwards or downwards, that is bidirectional. In xylem, you should remember the movement of water is always unidirectional, that is to upwards. Phloem transports mainly water and sucrose as sap, but also translocates other sugars, hormones, and amino acids. Now let us look at the mass flow hypothesis. This was proposed by Munch. The mechanism used for translocation of sugars from source to sink is called pressure flow or mass flow hypothesis. The sucrose, after synthesis is moved into the companion cells, and then it moves into the living phloem sieve tube cells by active transport. That is, expenditure of energy is taken at the expense of energy. As the osmotic pressure builds up, the phloem sap moves to the area of lower pressure. Active transport is necessary to move the sucrose out of the phloem sap and into the cells, which will use the sugar, converting it into energy, starch, or cellulose. As sugars are removed, osmotic pressure decreases and water moves out of the phloem. Phloem tissue is composed of sieve tube cells, which form long columns with holes in their end walls called sieve plates. As hydrostatic pressure in the phloem sieve tube increases, pressure flow begins and sap moves through the phloem. During this, at the sink, incoming sugars are actively transported out of the phloem and removed as complex carbohydrates. The loss of solute produces a high water potential in the phloem, and water passes out, returning to xylem. So this is how the transport of food takes place in the phloem, and this is explained by Maslow hypothesis of translocation. Now this completes the lesson. Now let us take the test. Okay. Now let us look at the first question. The roots of transpiring plants is directly proportional to the relative humidity. Humid air increases the rate of diffusion so that the rate of transpiration increases. Here, both are false. Both assertion and reason are false. Sorry, let's go into the next one. The membrane that allows some solute molecules to pass through it and prevent others is called selectively or differentially permeable membrane. So this is what I said. Please look at the question. Some solute molecule, semi-permeable membrane will not allow the solute molecules to pass through it. The external solution having more concentration than the cell sap is called as the hypertonic solution. The external solution having same concentration as that of cell sap is called isotonic solution. Sorry. The external solution having less concentration than the cell sap is called hypotonic solution. Net movement of water is from lower dPd to high dPd. Cell turgidity is caused by endosmosis, which helps in maintaining form and structure of the cell. So it is the turgidity. Fresh grapes shall shrink when they are placed in concentrated salt solution. Now, osmosis involves diffusion of water from less to more concentrated side. Now, dry seeds, when placed in water, swell up due to imbibition. A cell is plasmolysed after being kept in hypertonic solution. What will be present between cell wall and plasma lemma? It will only be the hypertonic solution. Now dPd is equal to OP minus TP, or it could also be wall pressure. Root hairs absorb water from the soil when soil solute concentration is higher in root hairs. Initial absorption of water by root hairs is through imbibition. Let me check with the fifth question. External solution having less concentration than the cell sap is called hypotonic solution. I don't know why it is not getting saved. Okay, let me end the test. Yes. So all the questions are right and you are getting 100% here. If by mistake, if I had done something wrong over here, then it will show in the, from the legend you can understand this card grid will get a red color. You just click on that particular question. It will display your answer and also the correct answer. It will also give you the explanation to say why your answer was incorrect. Suppose if you have not answered, it will be yellow in color. You click that also and try to find out the answer along with its explanation. One thing you need to be very sure, children, when you are appearing for NEET exams, if you are not sure of the answer, please don't mark them because it is negative correction and you will be losing -1 from your total. Now with this we have come to the end. We have come to an end. Now let us look at that NEET full packages are here. They have 38 full tests, that is 3-hour full test with 15 original tests and 20 plus past NEET papers. All are solved with solutions. You can get additional help by using our Ask feature on our site, and we also support chat group using Telegram. You can also book slots for one-to-one teaching with tutors for any queries or if you have any questions. Now when we are you can always mail your queries to info@clay6.com. So meet you all tomorrow. Thank you.